Welcome back to the FTN NFL Team Preview Series, sponsored by Boom Fantasy, your only choice for daily fantasy sports action. Boom Fantasy, most innovative games for the casual and the hardcore fan. You can win up to 500 times your entry only at Boom Fantasy. Download it on the App Store or Google Play and use that promo code FTN for a no-sweat bonus up to $100. And today, folks, we head to Kansas City. We bring in the man himself, Jesse Newell. Jesse, for those that don't know, is the championship man when we have him in, whether he's in Kansas or Kansas City. They always win. On X at Jesse Newell. He's the Chiefs beat reporter for the Kansas City Star. Jesse will kick it off. Wide receivers, off-field issues that occurred with Rashee Rice, but certainly refreshed and replenished here in Kansas City. Let's start with that wide receiver depth chart, what you're hearing, how you think it's going to go.
Well, yeah, we just got out of OTAs and watching mandatory mini camp out there in Kansas City. And I'll tell you what, I've seen this out there with fantasy that Hollywood Brown is on the rise, and I can understand why. Patrick Mahomes has talked glowingly about him. He's chucked the ball down the field. He's even joked, Patrick Mahomes has, that Andy Reid just keeps needling him, saying, hey, you need to keep throwing deep balls. Oh, you're going to take the check down, throw the deep ball. That was part of the offense that was not with the Chiefs last year, really, and unless it was in the moments they really needed, like the AFC Championship game. But they have been really impressed by Hollywood Brown so far. And again, getting a deep downfield threat that can catch the football, can track it well, is not something they've had. And Patrick Mahomes even had a quote last week when we talked to him, said kind of to the effect of like, I can't believe this guy's here. I can't believe that the rest of the NFL, let him fall to the Chiefs. So he's a guy definitely on the rise. You talk about Rashee Rice. There was a day out there at mandatory minicamp. He was the best receiver on the field. So he still should be productive. It's a matter of when he's out there and potentially facing a suspension from the NFL with the car crash that he had in the offseason. Still TBD there. I guess, everybody's still sort of waiting on news for that, but probably expecting a 4 to 6 game suspension for him at some point this season. And outside of that, Xavier Worthy is a guy that people want to talk about. The only caveat I have with that one is just that he's been sitting out OTAs and mandatory minicamp with a hamstring issue. And so he's been next to offensive coordinator Matt Nagy, trying to learn the playbook, trying to learn as much as he can. But you are giving up some on-field reps with Patrick Mahomes where he can learn to trust you. So I would say he's just a little bit behind because of health stuff, and those reps can be important. But as far as Hollywood Brown goes, I'd get ready to roll with him. And then Rashee Rice, when he's on the field, I think he'll be productive as well.
We'll move to the backfield. Of course, Isaiah Pacheco, fantastic running back, does so much for the Chiefs. Question always with us in the fantasy world, who's going to be the number 2? Are you hearing things about someone new? And then tie in, of course, offensive line, which is so critical, not only to protecting Patrick Mahomes, but creating those lanes for those running backs.
Running back's an interesting one for the Chiefs because they really haven't addressed it as you would expect them to. They re-signed Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So right now he's RB2, but who RB3 is, it's anybody's guess at this point. And I really even wouldn't be shocked if the guy's not on the roster right now. We know there's running backs sometimes, late in training camps that get cut or trade can be traded late in the, later in the season. So
we'll Jesse, Dalvin Cook, Cam Akers, those names being thrown around, of course.
Yeah. And the Chiefs usually go young with that sort of stuff, but they also kind of like the old guys that they've had before, So even a guy, Darrell Williams, I don't know. What's he doing right now? That sort of thing. Wow. So it's interesting with the Chiefs because they just have waited and waited and waiting with running back. Now, they still could pull a guy like Deneric Prince. He was an undrafted rookie last year. I know we talked about him glowingly, and then he kind of hit a little bit of a freshman wall. Maybe he steps into that third role, but I would not be surprised if that RB3 is somebody not on the roster yet who could develop to RB2 because, Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been kind of a nice backup guy for them who can catch passes, who knows the offense, but I don't think he's a workhorse. If Isaiah Pacheco went down, I'm not sure that they're giving him 25 carries. So we'll see. TBD on that particular part of this. As far as offensive line goes, most of it's settled except for left tackle. They drafted Kingsley Suamataia in the second round, and we saw him on the first string with a lot of the first string reps that they got in mandatory minicamp. So I would not be surprised at all if that second round pick emerges, becomes the Chiefs starting left tackle. Patrick Mahomes makes all those guys look good because he never takes sacks, all those sorts of things. But also in that competition, Wanye Morris, he's a third-round draft pick from a year ago, second-year player. Those two guys will compete for it in camp, and that's probably one of the biggest training camp battles in there, along with what you just talked about, the running back position, the third running back, who will be somebody that we'll have to look for because that position has not been settled just yet.
Yeah, shout out to you. We talked earlier this year about Kingsley and how they were targeting him. They brought him in, able to get him, I think, later than most people thought they were. He had a reach in the first round, but either way, they've done a fantastic job in the draft. Let's turn to the defense. Of course, defense fantastic last year, ranked 7th overall in team defensive DVOA. Had some changes as well, but certainly looks to be an elite group here as the Chiefs go for not one, not two, but a three-peat here heading into 2024.
Yeah, and people don't really look at it this way, but you should, is the number one free agent available in the offseason was Chris Jones, and the Chiefs signed him. You know what I mean? So to be able to bring that piece back, now there's some risk there. They paid him a lot of money, and when you pay him a lot of money and Patrick Mahomes a lot of money, doesn't leave much money for other things, and that's probably a reason why we're talking about the RB3. They really haven't addressed it all because they have to cut corners in certain places. But Chris Jones leads that defense now. They lost L'Jarius Sneed. They traded him away, but the one thing we know about the Chiefs here recently is that they have been able to replenish from the back end secondary guys with secondary coach Dave Merritt, and then obviously Steve Spagnuolo, who's a great secondary mind as their defensive coordinator. So look for guys like Joshua Williams, Jalen Watson, Najee Johnson. They're all in battle for that third cornerback spot. But the person who's going to take the outside over and do what L'Jarius Sneed did, match up with every other great receiver on the other teams, that's going to be Trent McDuffie. And I saw earlier this offseason, Pro Football Focus ranked him as the second best cornerback in the NFL. He was an all-pro player last year. So third-year player for the Chiefs. They moved up in the first round to get him, and high expectations for him. He's a super smart player. Loves to hit, is great in the run game, studies a bunch, super smart player. The one thing not to his name yet is an interception. So look for that. It's kind of crazy to be an all-pro player and considered the second best of your position and go 2 years without an interception. But that's where Trent McDuffie's at. Expect him to get one this year. But overall, the defense, it's weird with the Chiefs. They just brought everybody back. If you go look at their depth chart, this is really crazy. Defensively, they did not sign a free agent from outside the building. They re-signed like all their defensive players, Mike Dana, Mike Pinnell, those sorts of guys. And then Chris Jones re-signed Drew Tranquill as a linebacker. And they're basically rolling back what they had last year. So they're comfortable with those players. They did not bring in fresh blood, and they like what they have. And so look for that continuity to pay off because Steve Spagnuolo runs a very complicated scheme, but they have guys here who have run this system for a long time now.
Yeah, it's not Revis Island. It's now McDuffie Island. Listen, Jesse, great stuff as always. Last question, then we'll get you out of here. No surprise to anyone with the Chiefs' success. One of the more difficult schedules. We looked at it here at FTN in terms of non-conference strength of schedule. They are tied for second. Houston has the highest in terms of projected win totals, 103.5. Then it's Buffalo, Kansas City, Dallas, and San Francisco, all at 100.5 total wins. But you look at their schedule here. Road games, of course, you have within the division, but then you go to Atlanta, you have Cleveland, Pittsburgh, San Francisco. So talk about the schedule here and projections, how you think it's going to pan out early versus late. The Chiefs are going to be great no matter what, but just curious your takes here as you look for another tough year for the Chiefs, which should be undaunted to them for their success.
Yeah, it's kind of weird too because they face the NFC South, which you would think would be, all four teams there, almost a little bit of a break because the NFC South does not have the juggernaut, many other, divisions out there. But yeah, it'll be tough for the Chiefs. It seemed to me like they ran out of gas last year, and it was kind of a weird stat where they had a rest disadvantage for like 7 straight weeks at the end of the season. That does not take place this year, so that's a positive for the Chiefs. The weird schedule quirk they have is at the end of the season because they're playing that Christmas game that's midweek, and so they have to play like a Saturday the week before. So they have a lot of goofy stuff that happens late in the schedule, but kind of in the middle, there's a nice portion where they potentially can go on a run. And, Patrick Mahomes gets asked about this, Andy Reid gets asked about this, and they basically kind of shrug and kind of know what the deal is right now. The Chiefs are going to be on prime time. They're going to be on big games. When you win the Super Bowl, you're going to face tough teams, but you just got to face who's in front of you. So they're up to this challenge. They obviously have been the last couple of years. And I think this is an easier schedule than last year, just based off that rest disadvantage thing. But again, they're going to be challenged week in and week out. And there should be a lot of primetime marquee games that are circled on the NFL calendar that the Chiefs are going to be involved in this season.
If you want Chiefs information, the only person I go to is Jesse Newell on X at Jesse Newell, Chiefs beat reporter for the Kansas City Star. Like I said, he's the good luck charm. He talked last year about Rashee Rice. He talked about Kingsley Suamataia. Gives us great insight here. Jesse, we appreciate a few minutes as always. Looking forward to it. Can't wait here for preseason to get going so we get closer to the year, which I'm sure is going to be another great one for the Kansas City Chiefs.
I appreciate it, Mike. And I'll tell everybody, 2 straight titles covering the Chiefs. I'm available for hire. I'm always available for hire. You can hire GMs, free agents, whatever, or you could just, quadruple my salary. So that's always available.
Some people are born great. Some have greatness thrust upon us. Thanks, Jesse. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Mike.
The NFL Team Preview Series is sponsored by Boom Fantasy, your top choice for daily fantasy sports action. Boom Fantasy has the most innovative games that cater to both casual and hardcore fans. Win up to 500 times your entry only at Boom Fantasy. Download now on the App Store and Google Play. Use promo code FTN to get a no-sweat bonus up to $100.